Hi everyone, welcome to episode 28 of Sketch Support. Today I've got another free two-page sketch that you can download at scrapbookgeneration.com, and in this video I'm going to share 4 layouts that I've created all based on that one sketch. If you are new to my videos, the whole purpose of Sketch Support is to show how you can adapt and customize a sketch, any sketch, to fit your needs. As I show the layouts I created with this sketch, I share a breakdown of how and why I adapted the sketch to work with what I need or what I had on hand. There are so many benefits to using sketches, and they work for anyone from beginner to advanced. Sketches can help you streamline your creative process, and you don't have to sacrifice your unique style when using them. They help save time and effort and keep you from staring at a blank page trying to figure out where you want to start. With a sketch, you get to dive right into creating and focus your time and energy on the fun part of scrapbooking. And the purpose of these sketch support videos are to show the flexibility of sketches. The sketch provides a foundation, and you have the freedom to infuse your own unique touches, style, and embellishments. I always see a sketch as a starting point that I can use to build on with my own ideas. Sometimes that means I follow the sketch closely, and sometimes, and you'll see this in this video, sometimes I end up with a layout that looks nothing like the sketch. It's up to you how you interpret the sketch and make it work for you. There's also a 3-page PDF available for the sketch in this video that shows 22 different ways you can adapt the sketch. It's a great visual for those changes that you can make, and you can always mix and match different examples to get even more ideas. There are options that change up the papers, options that use less photos, options that use more photos. There are a few that use only 4x6 photos, and then there are one-page options and an option showing how to reduce the design to fit an 8.5 by 11 layout. And that reminds me, I just added some new sketches to the store at Scrapbook Generation, and I almost forgot about them. I had a lot of people request 8.5 by 11 sketches, so I finally did that. I have 2 sets of 8.5 by 11 sketches, one for one-page layouts and one for 2-page layouts. So I'll link to those down below in the video description if you want to go check those out. And if you ever have a request for a specific type of sketch, be sure to let me know in the comments. I love challenging myself and doing something new with the sketches, so I'm always open to your suggestions. So let's get started with a look at the sketch that has been used as the starting point for each layout in this video. This sketch is very photo heavy with 12 photos. Most of those photos are arranged together in a large photo block. I always enjoy creating 2-page sketches with large photo blocks like this. The reason why is that they are easy to adapt to different photos. I always see that large block as a puzzle, and I get to decide how big or small the pieces of that puzzle are. Looking at this particular photo block, I can break up larger photos into smaller ones. The 4x6 photos can be 2 4x3 photos, or the 5x3 photos can be 2 2.5 by 3 photos. Or if you want to include a larger photo, you could put a 5x6 photo here in place of the 2 5x3 photos. You could also go off on your own arrangement and fill the space any way you want. You could do 3 6x4 photos here and then change the journaling block and 5x3 photo to 4x3. You could also use all 3x3 photos. There really are endless combinations you can use with a design like this. And if you enjoy layouts with large photo blocks, a few weeks ago I added a new sketch set that focuses on designs with large photo blocks. The sketches all have a large photo block on one page, and then the other page has a more traditional style of design, like a one-page scrapbook design. To me, these sketches are great for those of you that want to include a lot of photos, but also want to have some fun with design and papers. I'll link to them down below in the video description. Another thing I want to mention about large photo blocks like this, where the photos are butted up to each other without any margins or photo mats between them, you do have to be careful that your photos don't get lost in each other. You still want each photo to stand out. I always like to find a way to define the edges of each photo, and you can do this several different ways. The easiest is to slightly reduce the size of the photos and add a photo mat. And you don't have to add one to every single photo. Sometimes I'll add one to every other photo, or I'll highlight 3 photos and kind of create a visual triangle within that photo block. It just depends on the photo block. My favorite go-to for defining the edges is to sand the edges and expose the white core of the photo paper. You can also ink the edges or use paint along the edges. The great thing about sanding, inking, and painting is that you don't have to crop your photos at all. So for the rest of the sketch, the photo block has some vertical strips framing it on both the left and right. And on the right, there are 3 more photos that are slightly tucked into the vertical strip design with some embellishments clustered around them. With my first layout, I had more photos than the 12 on the sketch, and several of them could not be arranged in the same way as the sketch. I had more vertical photos, and I had a lot of 3x3" square photos. The good thing is that it's very easy to adapt a large photo block, so I just did my best to make it work with the photos I had. I replaced the top 4x6 and the 2 5x3" photos with 3 3x6" photos, and then I extended the photo block to the left edge by adding another column of photos and removing the vertical strips on that side. Since I eliminated those strips, I decided to add a bit more detail to the large photo block to add in some decorative and colorful interest. For 4 of the 3x3" photos, I used a 3x3" photo mat with a 2.5" photo. Then I added some frames to a few photos, some arrows to go with the action theme, and some word and phrase stickers. I also changed up the photos on the right page. Again, I had mostly vertical photos, so I had to adapt to what I had. I chose to overlap and tilt them, and I skipped the part where they are tucked under the strips. It was a little harder to do that with the vertical photos I had and the way I wanted to do the title. This is kind of my go-to arrangement for 2 vertical photos, so it just felt right at that moment. For the strips, originally I had thought about using arrows in place of the strips, but when I was going through my cut files, I saw these chevron strips and really liked the look of them. I felt like they were playful, and while not exactly arrows, they kind of had that same feel as arrows in a way. I don't know if that makes sense really, but they've got points that had kind of a directional feel to them, and yeah, I just liked them. I had also thought about overlapping them, but in the end, I like them side by side better. They are only about 3/4 inch wide, so when they were overlapped, there wasn't a whole lot of each pattern showing. So instead of overlapping, I added a stitch border on just the right edges in hopes that it would kind of appear that they were overlapped. With my second layout, I made some really big changes. You might even look at it and say, there's no way this came from the sketch, but I promise you it did, and you'll totally get it when you hear me walk through it. So with this one, I rotated the sketch. Usually rotating a sketch is most commonly thought of for a one-page layout. The 12 by 12 inch square size of a one-page layout makes it super easy to rotate without having to change the size of anything. But with a two-page layout, rotating means a little more work because of the 24 by 12 inch rectangle shape. You have to change the 24-inch design to fit within the 12-inch height and the 12-inch design to fit within the 24-inch width. So you end up having to swap shorter pieces for longer stretched pieces while condensing longer pieces. It's quite the change, but it's a really, really fun way to use a sketch and get a completely different look out of it. I decided to rotate the sketch because I really wanted to use wave strips in place of the vertical strips on the sketch. And sure, I could have used them as the sketch was, but I loved the idea of the photos being tucked into the waves, kind of like an extension of the water in my photos. That was much easier to accomplish by rotating the sketch so that the bottom edge of the photo where the water is the part that's tucked into the wave. Because I rotated the sketch, now that large photo block stretches across the bottom section of the layout from left to right edge, and the strips design is along the bottom and top edges of the photos. I did change up the strips arrangement a little bit. I used one large pattern paper strip as a background and then added 3 layered wave strips along the bottom edge. Because of the design rotation, I had a lot more space in this area, so I added several more photos. They are overlapped and tucked into the waves, similar to the sketch design. And these wave strips are one of my go-to designs for water theme layouts, and they are so easy to create. All you need is a circle punch. I used a 1-inch punch for these, and that's probably the most common size I use, but any size works. So first you cut your strips and then turn the punch upside down so you can see what you are punching. And then you punch little half circles along one edge of the strip. It's so easy to make, and there's such a fun element for water pages. To embellish the layout, I swapped out those hearts for splashes. I used my favorite splash cut file, and I'll link to it down below. I used it to cut out droplets in several different sizes and colors. Then I added 2 different styles of stitching on them to add some texture and dimension. For the larger ones, I added a chain link stitched border, and then on the smaller ones, I used a back stitch. They both look a little different, so I thought it would be fun to kind of mix them up. I also added some stitched swirls on some of them. Then I clustered them all together in 3 different areas along with some summer themed stickers. The finishing touch was adding some Nuvo jewel drops in Sea Breeze, which is my favorite color for water themed layouts. For my third layout, I made some big changes again. This time I had a few less photos and I needed to arrange them a little differently due to the sizes and orientation. And I had an idea with the birthday theme that I really wanted to do. With this set of photos, I had mostly 3 by 3 inch photos, so I had to come up with a different plan for the large photo block design on the sketch. For the photo block on my layout, I used 2 5 by 3 inch photos, 3 3 by 3 inch photos, and then I cut 2 photos down to 2.5 by 2.5 so I could add a 3 by 3 inch mat. I also reduced the journaling block to 3x3" and used the same paper that I did for the photo mats. I liked that it added this triangle here within that photo block. With these changes, the photo block doesn't go to the top and bottom edges like it does on the sketch. Instead, it ends up a little closer to the left edge of the layout. On the sketch, the strips are just on the edges of the large photo block, but since my photo block doesn't go to the top and bottom edges, I thought it would be fun to extend them all the way across the layout, creating a background for the large photo block as well. I also changed the width of the strips. The sketch has a mix of 1/2 inch and 1 inch strips, but I settled on just 1 inch strips. I knew this was going to be a busier background, so I wanted to simplify it as much as I could by using just one size of strip. For the photos on the right side, I used the same amount of photos as the sketch, but the sizes were a little different. I had 2 that were originally 3x3" photos, so I had to adapt to that. It worked out well to have smaller photos since I used shorter vertical strips. I still tried to kind of follow the same concept as the sketch, but adapted it to work with the shorter strips and smaller photos. I always enjoy finding ways to incorporate the theme of my layout into the design. And since I was working with birthday photos, specifically birthday cake photos, I thought it would be fun to work an element from the photos into the design of the layout. So I turned the strips into birthday candles by adding a stitched wick and a star at the end for the flame. I used a chain link stitch for the wick to really make it stand out and look a little more realistic and recognizable as a candle. Turning vertical strips into birthday candles is something I've done several times. I just think it's a fun design that really plays into that birthday theme. And there's so many ways you can transform vertical strips into themed elements. I've done flowers with stems or trees, rockets shooting into the sky. I've done test tubes for a science page. You could do fireworks or falling snowflakes. There's really a lot. It's just a matter of using your imagination. For my final layout using this sketch, I adjusted the 2-page design to work for a 1-page layout. This is always the tradition of Sketch Support and the last layout. It's always about adapting the sketch to work for a different size of layout. I always say that you should never let the size of the sketch determine the size of your layout. There are tons of ways you can shrink or stretch or remove or add to make it work. For my 1-page layout, I actually followed the sketch quite a bit. It's just been shrunken down to adapt to the smaller size and then customized to my ideas. You have to remember that the design of the sketch is not something that you have to follow exactly. A lot of times I like to take the concept of that design and then adapt it to fit what I want. And that's exactly what I did with this layout. For the photos, I took the idea of the large photo block on the sketch and grouped 4 2x3" photos together in one block. It's still following the same concept of a photo block, but it's been reduced down to work on a 1-page layout. With the strips, I still used the same concept that you see on the sketch, with the strips on the left and right edges of the photo block. I did change it up a bit by using just 1/2-inch strips, and I arranged them at different heights and layered some of them. I thought this added a playful look to go with my photos. Since I didn't have the 3 photos to use tucked into the strips like you see on the sketch, I decided to use 3 larger stars instead. They are arranged like the photos on the sketch, but you get a completely different look. And again, it's the same concept, but it's been customized to a different idea. For the rest of the layout, I just kind of did my own thing. I love designs with lots of detail and clustering, so I went kind of crazy with that along the top and bottom edges of the strips. I added lots of different stars and some watercolor splatters. I also added a little cluster in this top right corner. I really liked these black phrase pieces, and I wanted to include 3 on my layout, using them to create that visual triangle that frames the design. And I really liked the arrangement with it up in the corner along with some more of those stars. So that's all for this episode of Sketch Support. If you are new to using sketches, we have a lot of free ones available at Scrapbook Generation that you can try out and see if you like them. We also have a giant library of sketches that you can purchase, and I'm adding to that library of sketches pretty much every month, so you might check back every so often. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I'll link to both of them down below in the video description. I always post there when I've got a new set of sketches. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.